And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, to the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it, but we have to have a system where people are held accountable.
That was Joe Biden last night calling for accountability and more transparency in policing after the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and just a week after a grand jury decided not to charge any officers in Taylor's death. Today, a judge granted Kentucky's Attorney General Daniel Cameron's request to delay the release of the grand jury findings, giving the AG until Friday at noon to release the tapes. Cameron's office requested the delay so that they can remove the names and other personal information from the witnesses from the 20 hours of recordings there. A judge ordered the release after an anonymous member of that grand jury filed a motion asking that the transcripts and recordings be made public. Joining our conversation is NBC News correspondent Blaine Alexander, who's been following the story. Jason Johnson's still here. Blaine, I understand this to be about, what it's reported to be about, removing some of the identifying information in the transcripts, but just take me inside whether there's more at play.
Yeah, so that's exactly what the Attorney General is saying, that he wants to remove some of the personal information. So, for instance, phone numbers, Social Security numbers, dates of birth. And he says that because there are more than 20 hours of recordings here, it would take him some time to do that. So the judge has given him until noon on Friday to do that. But, you know, the family of Breonna Taylor, so many people who have spent more than 6 months there protesting, and everybody who's followed this case very closely, anxiously awaiting what is inside those tapes, exactly what was presented to the grand jury. And that's been one of the biggest questions all along, Nicole. Now, we do know we have some more insight on what exactly the grand jurors did consider. We know that Daniel Cameron presented the charges of wanton endangerment for one of the officers, but he told a local station that he believed that it was not appropriate to recommend charges against the other two officers because he says that from the moment that Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, fired his legally owned gun, one shot because he thought that there were intruders coming in, he said that the other officers were justified in firing the shots that came after that. So he said that he presented the evidence, but he did not recommend those charges, adding that the grand jury is an independent body, and if they wanted to go further on charges, they could have evaluated that. So we expect to see those tapes come out on Friday, but Nicole, I've got to say, I just spoke with an attorney representing Kenneth Walker, and he says that they're going a step further. They have filed a motion to have not only an unredacted version of the grand jury recordings come out, but they also want to see the full recording or the full file from the police integrity unit. And that's notable because, of course, that is the internal unit that investigates all officer-involved shootings. So, you know, the mayor said that he wants to put that out, but the attorney told me they're not going to settle for the redacted version. They want all of that information to come out publicly. Nicole.
And Jason Johnson, you were on the air with me when this first decision was revealed that no charges would be filed against the officers responsible for the death of Breonna Taylor. What do you think that these transcripts and recordings could reveal?
They prove that Daniel Cameron is exactly who I said he was, that he was a coward, that he abdicated his responsibility given to him by Governor Beshear to be a special prosecutor, that he participated in essentially what amounts to a cover-up. This is what's important for us to understand about this, Nicole, and why people are still protesting and still this angry. What we've heard this week is not just a juror coming forward and saying, hey, look, Daniel Cameron lied to you. This is not what was made available. But we've also seen leaks, right? We've seen body camera footage that ended up in the hands of Democracy Now! And Vice TV showing that several of these officers were allowed to go unaccompanied into the investigative space of Breonna Taylor's apartment. We found ballistic reports by the Louisville police that say they can't determine whether or not Walker's bullet was actually the one that injured the officer. Daniel Cameron lied. He lied throughout his entire press conference, and then he abdicated his responsibility to present all of the possible charges to the jury. What he essentially did, and we've seen this with grand juries before, we saw this in Ferguson, is he took like 12 different puzzles, dumped them on the floor, and said, hey guys, figure out which one's an apple. right? And then when they can't decide anything, he comes back with a weak charge that we all know doesn't come close to holding accountable officers who engage in this behavior. So I'm glad to see that some of this is going to be done. I am concerned as to what kind of transcript we might see. Yes, it might only have names missing. It might end up looking like Morse code. We don't know who Daniel Cameron is getting his leads from.
Blaine Alexander and Jason Johnson, we will continue to cover it and follow it with your help. Thank you both for spending some time with us on today's news.